So I run a business, I work full time, I have a daughter, and my husband's not around. And I get that all the time. How do you balance this all? How do you work out? How do you do it all? And it's ADHD. I know no different. It's just I look at my day and my ADHD brain clicks and I can do it all.
Hello, I am John Brink and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people that are watching us, they say, around the world, we know where Canada is and we think West Coast is where British Columbia is. Yes. And then, you know, the big city in British Columbia is called Vancouver. We are 500 miles, and for our friends in Europe, 800 kilometers north of Vancouver. And it is a beautiful area, lots of trees, lots of forest, lots of nature. And the other beauty about it is that within 50 miles from around us, we have 100 lakes. And then we have lots of wildlife, black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, you name it, we have it here, living in harmony with nature. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Taylor Rizzo, and Taylor is the founder of Rizzo Health and Fitness. She's also a certified personal trainer, holistic nutritionist, and a lot of other things. So we're going to talk about that for the next hour. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Are you originally from BC in the north, or where are you from?
Yeah, so I am from Kitimat, BC.
Okay.
So a very, very small town up north. Growing up, we probably had about 6,000 to 8,000 people, 2 stoplights, 5 minutes from one end of the town to another.
Yeah.
So I graduated high school and came to the big city of Prince George.
The big city. Yeah.
Yes, it's the big city. And I was so nervous. And I remember my first day driving here, I was so scared because of the traffic in Prince George.
So when was that?
2012. So I came here for university.
Right.
And
UNBC.
Yes, UNBC. And then I left and I went back home. I went to Kitimat because it's home. It's beautiful. It's northern BC.
Yeah.
And
now Kitimat is again about 500. You see with Prince George, as I said in the introduction, BC is a big province. We are 500 miles north of Vancouver. That puts us physically in the center of British Columbia. The guys in Vancouver would say, no, Vancouver is, but for all intents and purposes, we are. So Prince George Center, it means north to south in the middle, east to west in the middle. And so Kitimat is on the Pacific coast, about 500 miles approximately from Prince George.
Yes, yeah. So
lots of rain,
lots of snow. A little bit different climate from Prince George. Prince George is dry, right? Dry, cold versus Kitimat. So I went back and then I realized that for opportunities for me for growth career-wise, Prince George was where I needed to be. So then I came back here and I've been here for 8 years now.
So then you went to UNBC, the University of Northern British Columbia. What did you take there?
So I jumped around a little bit.
Yeah.
I did forestry. And
interesting.
Then I realized I did not want to be outside in the cold.
Right.
So
good idea.
I made a switch and looked at business. And then I went back to Kitimat and worked for the modernization project for Rio Tinto.
Okay.
And then
Rio Tinto is aluminum, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Big factory.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I came back here and pursued my safety certificate. So I worked for a construction company for several years as their safety manager.
Okay. And then you always had an idea of being entrepreneurial?
Yeah. So I, throughout my whole life, struggled with obesity. I come from a European background and an East Indian background. Yeah. So it was very heavy foods, lots of cream, lots of eating. You have your pre-dinner, you have your dinner, then you have your post-dinner, and then you have your dessert, and it's lots and lots of eating. So I never had a healthy relationship with food.
No.
coupled with mental health struggles, would lead to binge eating. And 2020 hit and COVID happened. And like everyone else, I realized.
So you lost about 120 pounds.
Yes, yeah.
So that is hard to imagine.
Yeah.
How did you do that? You had to starve yourself, or what was it?
Yeah, so I have ADHD, like you, and you probably know when you hone in on, yes, when you hone in on something, it's all or nothing. You have no choice.
I know.
So I was like, I'm gonna get healthy, and that's it. And thank God for my ADHD brain, because that was it. I knew I was getting healthy.
So switching quickly over to ADHD, when did you find out you had ADHD? How old were you, if I can ask you, how old were you then?
Yeah, so it's actually only the last 3 years, I think about 2-3 years ago, where I was officially diagnosed.
So what did you, up to that point, what did you say, why am I different?
Yeah. I thought maybe I was an anxious person, maybe I had a lot of other things going on. And finally, when I realized that me scrolling till 3 a.m, Googling ADHD, probably meant that I had ADHD. I needed to talk to my doctor.
Did you know anybody else that had ADHD, or that you heard of anybody else in Prince George that had ADHD?
No, because I think that people were embarrassed. Like, I think it's only been recently in the past few years where people are more upfront and willing to share about ADHD. Yes. But most people hide it. They think it's something that you need to hide.
Stigma,
There's this stigma around it.
It's a superpower.
It is. It is.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
Or it can be.
Yes. I think if you know how to manage properly and come up with these skills. And so once I talked to my doctor and I said, I think I have ADHD, my whole childhood and my whole life really made sense to me, because a lot of the symptoms of ADHD and anxiety are similar, like they're identical.
Yeah.
So once you're treated for ADHD, a lot of those symptoms that you thought were anxiety
puts it in perspective.
Yes. Right? Yeah. So that was really like eye-opening for me to figure out what was really going on and why in high school I did really good. And then in university, when I didn't have any structure, I sucked, right?
Yeah.
So it was really eye-opening for me, I think, getting that diagnosis.
So it just took you off track. We'll go back to this at some point. So you kind of focused on losing the weight.
Yeah.
Now, losing 120 pounds is a lot of weight.
Yes. So when I first started, gyms were shut down. COVID happened.
So that was during COVID?
Yes, yeah. So I was in my basement with like baby weights, and I was just working out, doing YouTube videos, Googling how many calories I should eat, and didn't really have a concept of nutrition and fitness.
Right.
So I just worked my butt off and did everything I could. And then I got to a point where I think I lost about 40 or 50 pounds.
So now you have encouragement, right?
Yes, yeah.
You stand on the scale and you start looking at yourself and you can see a difference, right?
Yes. I think a turning point for me was I remember I stepped on the scale and it was 199, so below 200 pounds. And I never thought I would see that. I don't think I didn't even know what the last time I saw that was. So that was like, I was like, okay, I have to do this. I'm so close. So then I decided I was going to start working with a personal trainer, and I found a personal trainer.
Here in Prince George?
No, so I went on Instagram and found someone that I thought looked really good, and I wanted to look like her. So I was going to work with her.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was good. Definitely, I was eating a little bit too little, and it worked. And then I finally realized that I needed to learn this for myself. I needed to know the ins and outs. Right? Yeah. Because I like knowing why. I hated being told eat this, but not knowing why.
Yeah.
Or you work
Which
out
in
this.
a lot of times is the case, right?
Yeah. So
much information out there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wanted to learn why. And then that's why I decided to start taking the personal training certificate just for myself. Right. So not really to help anyone else, but just so I had the knowledge.
Yeah.
And then that was and then I kept working away and I managed to lose 120 pounds.
Over how much time?
So I started my journey March of 2020, and by August of 2021, I had lost 120 pounds.
That's a lot.
Yes.
That's nearly 10 pounds a month.
Yeah. Yes. And August 2021 was a turning point for me. Woke up one morning and I was pregnant. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Because I had just worked so hard, right? And I woke up and, you take the pregnancy test. I'm pregnant, okay? And
The first one?
yes, yeah, our very first one. So I didn't know how my body was going to react, and I was really nervous. And I think the hard part on a health and fitness journey, especially when you go from being obese to losing a lot of weight, is there's this fear. There's this really big fear of, oh no, am I going to go back? Yeah. And you don't know how to manage it, and you don't know how to manage your emotions.
Well, everything is changing then.
Yes.
Right? Everything.
Yeah. And
mentally, physically.
Exactly.
Diet, blah,
and
blah,
a
blah.
lack of control, right?
Yeah.
Your body's changing, and it's not like if I would see the scale scooch a little bit before and I'm like, oh, it's, because I wasn't the best with my eating this week. Let's hone in a little bit closer. But there's nothing you can do, right?
No.
Where I think often people talk about pregnancy and they talk about you're glowing and everything, but they don't look at the other side where not all women love being pregnant. Sometimes it's a really hard mental health struggle.
Exactly.
So we went through that, and I gained 90 pounds during my pregnancy.
Gained 90.
Yeah. Or no, sorry, 75 pounds. So I gained 75 pounds during my pregnancy because I ended up being put on bed rest.
What does that mean?
So we had complications during our pregnancy,
Okay.
and I was put on bed rest. So I couldn't walk for more than 5 minutes at a time. So I went from working out 5-6 days a week and running 3 times a week to then being stuck in my bed, which was really, really hard on me. And my body needed it needed the weight, obviously, right? And I couldn't understand, because there's this thing that's out there that society tells you you're only going to gain 30 to 35 pounds when you're pregnant.
Right.
And I was like,
not 75.
Yeah.
Double that.
Yeah.
Virtually.
So then I had my daughter. She was healthy, which was amazing, and stepped on the scale.
How old is she now?
She's 2.5.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah. She's sassy and fun. And
What's her name?
Stella.
Stella?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then I had to do it all over again and relearn my body, because your postpartum body is very different than your pre-pregnancy body.
So now, that's 2.5 years ago. Now you've gained back 75. Mm-hmm. That puts you probably close to 200 again, or in that area.
Yeah.
And now you said, now what?
Then I had to lose another 65 pounds.
Yeah.
So I lost another 65 pounds.
Going back to the same routine
Yes.
that you had before?
Yes and no. So it's funny, because before you have a child, you think you have all the time in the world. So I would go to the gym, I would go for a run in the morning, and then I would go spend 2 hours lifting weights. So I had to pivot nutrition-wise, my fitness, wise.
The family?
Yeah, you have to balance so much more. So it's definitely been a different approach postpartum. I don't work out 6 days a week. I work out 4 days a week.
Great shape in my mind.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. So you have to pivot. And I think that's a big misconception, and it's hard for women to understand sometimes, is that doing what we did before we had children isn't realistic, and it's not going to work.
Now, the other thing that comes to mind, I hope I say it correctly,
Mm-hmm.
polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS.
Yes.
Unique to females.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
So PCOS is a hormonal condition, and it's a weird thing, because throughout my since I've gotten my period, basically, it's surrounding your menstrual and all of that, I had a very hard time, and I would develop cysts, and I would develop polyps, and I would develop all these things. And I would go to my doctor and I would say, hey, I have these cramps and I can't get out of bed.
No.
And it was,
Why?
well, you're overweight, like you need to lose weight. And that's what was told. So finally, that was a part of me in 2020 saying, screw it. Well, I'm going to do it then. And it wasn't until I did start losing the weight that I was taken seriously by my doctor, where then we were tested for PCOS, and it was like, oh yeah, so that maybe is why you were really struggling to lose weight for all of those years, or why all of these symptoms were really present. And it's really hard for women with
Does
PCOS.
that start early when you first start having your,
Menstrual
your
cycle?
periods?
Yeah. So it can definitely happen.
12, 13, 14
Yes,
years old.
and it's a lot of hormonal things. So like
Yeah.
excessive hair, which I just thought I'm European, so I'm hairy, right? Or it's things like your cycles are irregular, or like heavy periods, or lots of pain. And it's really, really hard for women with PCOS to be able to lose weight.
Until I saw it
Yes.
from you, I had never heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously it's not male, but
Yes.
more female related. And but I had not heard of it. I've heard about people having difficulty in different stages of their life, but never PCOS. The acronym, I had to look it up
Oh,
to
yes.
see what it really meant and what it was. Yeah.
I think a lot of women struggle with it.
Right.
It's a big thing, and I think it's really hard for women to talk about, because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of things that you can do to manage your PCOS symptoms.
Right.
So maybe you have hormonal acne, and maybe you're going to take medication or do topical
Yeah.
treatments for that, or maybe you have excessive hair and you're going to do laser hair removal, or maybe your periods are irregular, so let's throw you on birth control. But a lot of the symptoms of PCOS, unfortunately, can be managed by getting to a healthy weight.
Right.
But women with PCOS really struggle to actually lose the weight. So
But the one is not necessarily connected, right? That it does not mean that either you start out with the early stages when you first get your period,
Mm-hmm.
that you are still normal weight, and that you already could have then at that point PCOS.
correct, yes.
And then gaining weight may not necessarily be directly related to that, but could be other things as well in
Yes.
combination.
Yes, yeah, 100%. And then being able to lose the weight is really hard, because with PCOS, it's hormonal. So
Right.
often your hormones are imbalanced. Maybe
Right.
you need like estrogen, different things like that,
Yeah.
which makes it just harder for women to then lose the weight if you do have PCOS. And the approach to women with PCOS is very, very different than women without PCOS, or just people on a health and fitness journey in general. Things like what we should be eating, or things like I have women with PCOS who are coming to me and they're eating 1,300 calories. And I have a really cool client. She's amazing. She was working with someone else for 6 months, and she was messaging me throughout the time, and I kept telling her, hey, like, you need to eat more. That's what's going on. Like, let's get you eating more. And then so finally she reached out.
protein.
Yes, she reached out and she said, okay, Taylor, I'm here. Like, I want to work with you. And I said, okay, let's throw away the scale. Let's take away that pressure, and let's just focus on how you're feeling for 6 weeks. And I said, but you have to trust me, because I'm going to add probably another 600 to 700 calories, and we're going to up your protein. And you just need to trust me. Like, this is why you want to work with me. So we upped her protein, we upped her calories, and within 6 weeks, she had lost 7 pounds, and she had not lost any weight in 6 months on the lower caloric diet.
So the message there really is that eating less doesn't mean you're going to lose weight.
No.
It likely is just the opposite, is that if you carefully manage your diet, protein, calories, and understand it, then that helps you in getting to the weight and fitness that you want to be at. Would that be somewhat right?
I definitely agree. And I think with men in a health and fitness journey, it's definitely eat more, eat all the steaks, eat all the pork chops, like eat all the meat. And with women, I think it stems back from like the 1990s where you're looking through those magazines and it's telling you, eat a salad and don't have any dressing on it and just have a green salad with maybe iceberg lettuce and tomatoes and don't eat at all. But you also need to do cardio 6-7 days a week. And a lot of women come to me and that's what's going on. And once we say, no, like maybe let's work out 4 or 5 days a week and let's up your calorie and protein intake, is where they see that change. And how I try to explain it is you're doing all these things, but you're just adding stress onto your body. And your body's wondering, when am I going to eat next? When am I going to fuel? And your body starts getting stressed out and it's holding on to everything. So maybe you didn't eat till 11 a.m. and your body from the time you woke up at 6 is wanting the food. And so it holds on to everything, which lowers your metabolism. Right. So it's really hard, I think, especially for women to understand that you need to kind of up everything, which has been a change.
I'm trying to find my book.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
So this one here.
Yes.
So that's the guy that you're looking at.
Yes.
Me. So I just turned 84 on Friday, actually.
Last Friday or this Friday?
Yeah, last Friday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. 84 years young, I call it.
Yes.
And so, especially at my age, and then being active in the gym, and so it's even more important for me that I have to stay fit, healthy. Yes. I have to understand protein, calories. I have a bit of a cold, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
So it's very, very important. So I work as a trainer. A fella that came from Ketimat, actually.
Oh, cool.
Stefan.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You know Stefan?
I think he's older than me, but I do remember him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Have you always been active your whole life?
No.
Oh, okay. And what made you want to get into lifting weights and?
So a little bit of a story there is that in my case, in 2008, when I was 58, I had a case of diverticulitis.
Okay.
You familiar with diverticulitis? So if you have pain here, it's likely your appendix.
Okay.
On the right.
Yeah.
On the left side, potentially your colon, or that side, or diverticulitis.
Okay.
Which means usually if you go to the doc and you say that, I'm not a doc or a medical individual, but from my experience, then they would say change your diet.
Yeah.
And so that's usually the remedy in a way. But in my case, I had a rupture.
Okay.
And so the toxins then went into my body and started attacking the healthy organs potentially. You have about 48 hours to make sure you get something done about it. Somehow I was in Victoria when it happened. I have a high threshold for pain. It's not good, which should put you down. And so I got to Prince George, I got to my doc. I seldom have anything. He said, right, I go to the hospital. And that evening I got an operation. They took 20 centimeters out of my colon. And the following morning he said, you came this close.
Oh, no.
And then I knew that I had to become more serious about diet and exercise. And so since 2009, when I was 59, I started, my wife is vegetarian, and I didn't listen as well to her as I could have. I was not abusive in a way, but still I didn't do my diet as well as I should have. So I became more serious about diet. I call myself a vegan now. Yeah. 80-20 or 90-10. And then I hired a trainer to work with. Up to that point, I was like most people, is that at the end of the year, we say we're going to do this, that, and that. And then I'm going to go buy a membership to the gym. Yeah. And that's my New Year commitment.
Yes.
And then it takes about 2 weeks, and then I can find 100 reasons why I'm too busy to go to the gym.
Yes.
But then I knew I had to get more serious about it. So as soon as I recovered from the operation, I started working with a trainer. And after doing that I was overweight, I was not in good shape, didn't feel good about myself really. And then after about working out for about 6 years, one day somebody came up to me and said, into myself and my trainer said, "Hey John, have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me? Yeah." I said, "Never thought about it." Well, it gave me a go, right? So, and I started then going to the gym more and starting to train, and then started competing here.
Yeah.
2017, I think, and maybe you were still familiar with that as well.
Yeah.
When we had it here, came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique, qualified me for the provincials.
Yeah.
Came in third in bodybuilding, second in physique, qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And then COVID came.
Yes.
So, and so I was still active, but not the same as I had been before. And then started again here a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, right after COVID actually, and again with a trainer. And then, so now again, I'm getting ready for 2025 at 85, competing at the Arnolds.
That is really exciting.
So that's who I am today.
Wow.
So
That's quite an
I'll just share
accomplishment.
with my guest. So here's a picture of me, and Living Young, Dying Old is the book about that. So, so that made a difference for me.
Yes.
And in a number of ways. Then the longer I stayed involved, and for me, my life is a lot of times, I'm not trying to be important, but I usually go from meeting to meeting and do a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But once I have a commitment, I go out of my way to meet that commitment and to work with a trainer, in particular, as you well know, that is qualified. Then being careful about the diet is very, very important.
Yes. Yeah. No, for sure it is.
And then having a structure to the training, and so that's what I do now. So I usually go 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And then once I get closer to competing, I go, be more careful about diet. And then I'm going to be competing in Victoria, I think, in April.
Wow. That's exciting. That's really cool. I have never obviously competed, but I think it shows that like anyone can compete. I think a lot of people are held back because they're worried that maybe like age, like it's women in their 30s and 40s and they're like, I can't do it. So I think that your story is really inspiring to show that like anyone, if you really want to do it, you can do it.
And I'm an example, right? So that's, I started all of this virtually in my 60s.
Yes.
And so and at the same time, I would not be telling you the truth. And I had some anxiety about it at first. Because standing in your Speedos in front of all your friends in town here in Prince George, especially at the older age, you know. But once I got through that, the whole process of, getting tanning and doing all of that kind of stuff, was very, very interesting. And, and then once I came in second year and third, that qualified me for the provincials. And at the provincials, I bet you there were 200 athletes there, male and females, and every single one of them belonged there. There was no question about that.
Yes.
I know that because what it takes to get there, the commitment that you have to make, and so it was really, really quite an experience.
So did you, the last time then you competed was 2019, or right before COVID hit?
Yeah.
Are you feeling nervous now that it's 5-6 years later?
No,
are you ready?
To the contrary, in fact.
Yeah.
I feel very good about my body.
Yes.
And, Actually, just today it was kind of interesting that I'm working out, and so at Gold's I work out a lot. So I was working out with Stefan and kind of pushing it pretty hard, and so some fella came up to me. There were about 3 people, two middle-aged individuals with a trainer. This one fella comes up to me and he said, "You Jack?" I said, "No, I'm John." He said, "No," the trainer said, "he tells you you're Jack."
Yes.
Oh, I said, I didn't even realize it, so because I look pretty good.
Yes,
but I don't think about it that way.
Yeah.
So that initially, before I went to the gym, I had lots of self-confidence, lacked self-confidence. I didn't even know how to sit on the machine. And I thought if I go there, then everybody says, what the hell is he doing here?
Yeah.
But that's not so. That's not how gyms work, is that everybody is supportive of each other. And, and to gain that confidence, it's all about fitness and health.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, everything is possible.
Yes.
And that was my experience. And still today, the reason that I did this, it gave me a goal, ADHD.
Yes.
And it makes me go to the gym, and I like it. And with the gym, just like with diet, at least in my mind, is that I'm vegan. I don't do meat really, other than very little.
Yeah.
And, but I'm very careful about my diet. And then, then exercise, obviously. And then I'm watching it very, very closely. And then working with a trainer is very, very important.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And then at the same time, I mention it lots of times obviously I write about it. And then on my podcast, I talk about it, is that, I know so many people in the 40s and the 50s, and they say, I'm under that, but I'm too old.
Yes.
Say, you're never too old. And I'm an example because I competed in my 70s, and I will be competing in my 80s. And my class is 55 and older, and was then also, when I competed either in Prince George, then, provincially and nationally, that's the age group.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people mask like they're too scared or they're too nervous, or like you said, they're too anxious to go into the gym because they're wondering what other people are going to think of them. So by saying I'm too old or I have too much going on is a way to like protect themselves from that.
Yeah. And then the other part about it is that if you do it, then you will get to the point that you will enjoy it. The same as diets. If diets don't have to be not tasting good, you can have careful managed diets and they taste well at the same time. And the more of it you do, the more you see the results, the better you feel about yourself, right?
Yeah, and I think that what people think if you are, watching your diet or watching what you eat is that you need to restrict, that you can't have like that cookie or you can't have that piece of cake. And you definitely can. It's learning just a balance. So the 80-20 rule, right? Exactly. 80% are foods that are nourishing and whole foods, and 20% are like last night I had ice cream with my daughter. She wanted to go get ice cream. So cool.
And why not? You know, so and so you know your body, and you know how to manage it. And still, as you say, that doesn't mean you cannot touch anything. You can, as long as you do it carefully. Yeah.
I find one thing that I've been teaching my clients is there's this rule. It's called the add, not subtract rule. So say we're sitting here right now and there's like a pile of cookies and we're telling ourselves, oh, don't touch the cookie, right? So for 20 minutes, you're staring at the cookie and we're not touching it, but it's all you're thinking about. So why don't you just have that cookie to start, but then pair it with something more nutritious? So have that cookie, but pair it with a banana.
Yeah.
And then your body's going to have the cookie that you're craving.
Exactly. And
the banana is going to give you the nourishment that you need, and you're going to be satisfied. Exactly. Or we're going to talk and I'm going to keep staring at that cookie for 20 minutes and then I'm going to eat one cookie and then stare at it for another 5 and then eat another and eat another. Exactly. So it's just, like have it, but add something to it to make it more nourishing.
Exactly. So just coming back to, and I'll tell you a little bit about me and ADHD. So you were still fairly young compared to me when you found out about ADHD and understood it. In my case, I was born in Holland, in the northeastern part of Holland in 1940. And then academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times, actually. Now, part of that likely is also not only ADHD, although I believe I was already then. I believe it always starts right from the beginning, in my mind. And but we saw far too much during the war years, PTSD.
Yeah.
The inner child, I got counseling for that at my 50th birthday, very emotional. That little boy living within the fear of losing. In our case, my dad was drafted into the Dutch army in April 1940. I was born in November. I had a brother and sister, 1 and 2 years older than me. And so for 5 years, they didn't know if he was dead or alive. So the last they saw him was in Rotterdam when they bombed it, and thousands of people died. So my mom was pregnant with me and then 2 kids. And then I remember all the planes overhead, like the sound of hundreds of bombers overhead. Where we at nights would go out and stand on the outside. And in the distance we see cities burning. The reason that my mother did is she felt safer outside than inside.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because hundreds of bombers overhead, bombing cities in Germany, we could see the sky being red all the way, and Wilhelmshaven, Bremen, Hamburg in the distance.
I could only imagine how that felt and how it probably impacted you. So no wonder you couldn't perform in school, coupled with the ADHD. There was so much external pressure and stresses daily.
Now, the next thing that I remember was in 1944 when we had, the Germans had cut off all the food.
Yeah.
And my brother, myself, and me, every morning we would go with gunny sacks into the railroad yards and pick up anything edible and burnable. And the reason that we did is that the Germans wouldn't shoot us, but they would boot us one, and then the following morning we would be back. But there was no food, and a lot of kids died, and other people that were vulnerable were dying during that year. And then the winter of 1944-45 was the coldest one on record. And and I still remember, even now, I can feel the hunger, still now. And I can feel the cold, and we had only one room. The rest of the house was not heated, that he kept warm in that little stove. We sit and we freeze on the back, and on the front it was hot, so to survive. And then we were liberated by the Canadian Army as part of the Allied Forces on April the 12th, 1945.
So just after the coldest winter.
Yeah. And so the impression that I got from the Canadians coming in, and they had a little section of the Canadian Army Red Cross right behind our house, as far as the cake is, from half a block away from us, less than half a block. And we would go there in the morning, and they feed us with bread and cheese, and the cheese and the butter was bigger than the bread. And we called everybody Johnny. We didn't speak the language, but we did. And it made such an impression on me that I always knew I would go to the land of my heroes when I grew up to Canada. And then obviously we were at the northeastern part of Holland before, 10, 15 minutes from the border with Germany. And as the Allied forces pushed them through northern Holland back to the German border, we saw, it was pretty rough where we saw far too much that we should not have seen, dead bodies and all of that kind of stuff. So I was affected by PTSD still today, and then in the inner child, as I said before, the fear of losing that one parent, because everybody had the same issues. They were all struggling to survive themselves, and you were pretty much on your own together with my mom and the 3 kids.
And how old were you when the Canadian Forces came in? You were 5.
Yeah, nearly 5. And so that's what impression it made on me. And even now still what I do is that, because we're close to Remembrance Day, obviously, that right after this, I'll be speaking to one of the schools here, Kelly Road.
Oh, okay.
Probably 500-600 kids or so. I usually do at least 2 or 3 schools a year that down here and down the coast, because I was there. I know what it was like, and to say, what really does it mean, the 2 minutes of silence, and why is it important, and why should we appreciate the things that we have, and how quickly it all can change.
Of course, I think that it's easy for people now. We are blessed that we haven't had those things. So it's easy to not really realize until you have someone like you that's been through it to talk about it.
And still knows it and still feels it, right? So that part was important. And then, so then obviously, as I said earlier, is that I was not a success story academically. I think it was mainly probably ADHD, but also PTSD, maybe in a child, whatever. Anyway, so then they said, what are we going to do with this kid, So they said to my parents, maybe, some people said, maybe send them to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. We'll teach them a trade.
Yeah.
So my grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad worked in lumber. So they sent me at 13 to a furniture factory.
Okay.
And I liked it.
Yeah.
But kids are hard on each other sometimes. And all the kids that I grew up with, they went to college and university, and I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but not then, right?
Yeah.
And so then it took me to, I wanted to go when I was 17 to Canada, but my parents wouldn't let me. Was then drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years. It's a good experience, actually. And then I went to Canada in 1965, and I was 23. And then I wanted to start with nothing. So suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. Just to prove to me, not anybody else, that I was just as smart as the other people.
Yeah.
Not better than, but just as smart. But I wanted to start with nothing. And so then I knew I wanted to go to British Columbia because that's where all the trees are. And so when I came to Montreal, I took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. It's a long way. Oh my God.
Especially if you can't speak the language either.
And didn't have very much money. And so
you were scared?
Yeah, a little bit, but I knew what I was going to do. Came to Vancouver, went to the immigration office, and I could speak English. Fortunately, there was a German fellow there.
Oh,
I could speak some German. And I told him what I wanted to do. He said, go to Prince George. That's
really?
That's where they're building the mills. And so on the bus, the Cleon station. You remember. And close by. So I went to Prince George, 12, 14 hours in the bus, came off the bus, and I had my suitcase, my 2 books, and with me. And then I counted my money at least 3 times, and I had exactly $25.47.
Really?
In my pocket. I counted it at least 3 times. But what I had lots of is attitude.
Yeah.
That I always know that no matter, I always did that as a young guy already, that I always was an optimist, and I still do that today. I'm always an optimist. No matter how tough things are, I know tomorrow's going to be a better day. I avoid negative. Passion, no matter what I do, I give it 125%, and I still do that, and I do that all the time. The other one is work ethic. And even now what I do, I usually get up and this morning at 5:30. Always make my bed, always think that I'm late. So that's what I did. Came here, started as a lumber pilot, cleanup man. And then within a couple of years, I was the superintendent of a sawmill here, one of the biggest ones. And then within 10 years, I started Brink Forest Products and then the Brink group of companies. And obviously now we have about 10 different companies and do all kinds of other things, but it's not about that.
Yeah. When you got to Prince George, how long did it take you to realize that you were going to stay here, that this was the place where you wanted to be?
I knew this was the opportunity
Yes.
for me to get a lumber mill. And I didn't know much about Prince George other than that part. Lots of mills, lots of lumber, lots of trees. So this is where I was going to stay. But then something happened in between then. And I was in a big hurry. And I didn't, even although I was already a superintendent of a big mill in the first 2 years, barely spoke the language, then there was an opportunity to become a manager of a mill and part owner in 5 years, but it was in Watson Lake, Yukon.
Oh, really?
Have you ever been there?
No, I have never been to the Yukon, but I could imagine.
So for a guy coming from Holland, it was 62 below zero, so and I'd never seen that. Anyway, I was there for 5 years, then came back to Prince George and then started my lumber mill here 50 years ago exactly now. So it was 60 years ago that I came here, 50 years ago that I started my company and then added other companies. And then the one part that I was going to get to is that just trying to find a book here. So then talking about ADHD.
Yeah.
So I already was quite successful. Everybody said, oh, you're so successful. And I didn't feel that way. And then one day in 1997, I had already been here 32 years, already was successful at a number of companies, but still didn't feel good about it. And then I walked into the store here, the store on 3rd, Books on 3rd.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You know the one, right?
Yeah, Books and Co.
Yeah. So I picked up a book. This is the actual book that I picked up.
Really?
Driven to Distraction.
Yeah.
Written by Dr. Helio. And as I went through the book, I nearly wore it out. It was all about ADHD. I had never even heard of it. And I said to myself, oh my God, that's me. And I wrote in that book in Dutch, now I finally know who I am.
Wow.
And the date is January 1997. And this is the actual book. Now, Dr. Halliwell, well known globally for ADHD, has written 18 books.
Oh, wow.
5 on distraction, and is ADHD and has dyslexia. So do I.
Oh, that I've never read that book, but I definitely think I will now.
Yeah. So the other part about it is that I had him on, was it 203, Scott? Yeah. So I had him on my podcast.
Yes.
You are podcast number
338.
There you go. And so if you go back to YouTube, look at 203.
Okay.
I have a podcast with Dr. Halliwell. Can you believe it? He wrote his book in 1993.
Yes.
I bought it in 1997. I podcasted him about a year ago. So, and I still, that's why I have it still here. So, I had him on my podcast. Now, already by reading the book, I knew that the frequency of occurrence much higher than I thought initially, 8 to 10%, male and female, globally. So I felt it was much more than that. So when I interviewed Dr. Halliwell, I suggested to him, he's the expert, not me, although I lived it, that I believe the frequency of occurrence probably 20%, maybe even more. He said, no, John, more than 25%. I agree with them. Then the other part about ADHD is that, and I've been involved in a number of companies and boards of directors, and I know a lot of leaders of different description, entrepreneurs, businessmen, you name it. I met them all, been on boards. I suggested to him that I believe of the successful, and successful is the operative, businessmen and entrepreneurs, probably 50% of them are ADHD. He said, no, John, probably 75%. I agree with him. So what I did is the more I got to know this, the more I knew in my mind, this is a superpower. So I was never good. Dyslexia is one, ADHD, then PTSD maybe in combination, I don't know. I didn't feel good about myself, was not a good communicator. And so, and then when I saw this, that changed everything for me. Now, the other part about it that was important for me already before that, in 1990, I was already successful. Everybody said, you're so successful. I was not very good at that. I could maybe interact with 2 or 3 people in my company, but not outside of that well. And then somebody dragged me, not physically, but to Toastmasters.
Oh, fun.
Yes. And I said, what's that all about? He said, about communications. And I said, is anybody going to ask questions? No. And so I'm there halfway through the meeting, and all of a sudden somebody said, hey, John, tell us all about you. I said, oh, my God, I'll never go back here. But I stayed there for 10 years, and that kind of unlocked the ability, the confidence to become a good communicator. And I know, without bragging about it, that I'm a very good communicator, both in writing as well as in presentations that I do, and obviously as well as in podcasting. And so it was the combination of all those circumstances of PTSD in a child, academic failure, we said this guy's too dumb to whatever, right? All the negative stuff. Then starting over new again physically, starting with nothing, and then having the dream of building that mill, did that, but then found this, and then the same with Toastmasters. The combination of all of that probably made me a late bloomer, if you wish. Mm-hmm. So since the time I've written 5 books, this is another one I felt I had to write about.
I have that one. Yeah.
Did you have that one? So I'm going to make sure that you get a copy of the other books as well.
Oh, thank you.
So anyway, coming back to ADHD, that I believe frequency of occurrence much higher than most people think it is. I believe it likely is closer to 30% globally. My phone is ringing, Scott, in my ear.
Oh.
So so it changed everything.
And with ADHD, what I found out was there's this funny fact that men are often diagnosed earlier on. Not always the case, but most likely they're diagnosed when they're children or early 20s. Yes, hopefully. But females are more often diagnosed after they've had their children. So postpartum, because everything is even more elevated. And it's just this weird thing that happens, I guess, with your brain and your body, where you've had ADHD your whole life, but it's even more elevated after you've gone through that. And I think that there is just this stigma, and even since I've been diagnosed, there is this domino effect, because then all of a sudden I had one friend and she's like, Taylor, do you think I have ADHD? And I'm like, oh, well, obviously, you knew that. And then someone else is like, oh, I think I do. So it's just being knowing someone that's open and talking about it more, or even with you having the book, or having someone like talk about it on platforms, it makes it so people can kind of realize like, oh, maybe I actually do have that.
So it's interesting that you say that. Frequently on my podcast, that happens that people say, I never told anybody, but
Yeah.
I have it too. Just today, I think it was yesterday and the day before yesterday, I had it on my podcast that somebody said I never told anybody, but they believe they talked about their son.
Oh, okay.
Actually, my son, Dave, was just diagnosed and blah, 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 blah. And now we are 3/4 through the podcast. And so interesting. So I'm going to send you a book, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, and I'm too. Oh, when did you get diagnosed? 3 months ago. Oh, so she was still struggling with that issue. Now, the other part of it that you will find interesting is that just the day before, probably Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. So I met my trainer, Stefan.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're doing our stuff and then say, John, I have to tell you something. I said, okay, what is it? I'm diagnosed with ADHD. I said, oh my God.
It's I think the stigma is breaking definitely around ADHD, but I know when I was first diagnosed, I had some of my family members and they were right away, their first question was, well, does that mean Stella's gonna have it? And in my mind, like you said, ADHD is a superpower. So if she has it and her mother is equipped with the tools to help her succeed, then cool. Like there is absolutely nothing wrong with having ADHD. And it is a superpower.
Fact, to the contrary.
Yeah.
I've done presentations with hundreds of people that I'm always talking about that I always included, and maybe a presentation about something different, but I always include a bit about ADHD and what I do about it and talking about it. And so I know that quite a number of people will raise their hand of saying that, hey, I believe I have it, or blah, blah, blah. And then I know there's a number of people after I'm done with it that say, damn, I wish I had it too.
Oh, for sure.
So I call it a superpower. But the point that I was really going to make is that I have an obligation to talk about it and to share it. Like for me, from the time I was 13, failing and being dumb, stupid, whatever you want to call, send them to the mentally challenged school, to nearly 62, I bought the book when I was 57, but it took me 5 years before I went to my doc.
Oh, to get the diagnosis.
Yeah, and who had delivered our two daughters was a personal friend, and I walked into his office and he said, hey, John, why are you here? I said, I think I've got ADHD. And so we checked out, and yes, I do. But so now what I get a lot of times is all the stuff that I do, people said to me, how do you do all this stuff? I say ADHD, that's how I do it.
That's that's what I was just about to say is I run a business. I work full time. My husband with, unfortunately, the forestry industry works out of town. We had to make that choice. And so, so I run a business. I work full time. I have a daughter and my husband's not around. And I get that all the time. How do you balance this all? How do you work out? How do you do it all? And it's ADHD. I know no different. It's just I look at my day and my ADHD brain clicks and I can do it all.
So what I'm going to do now is that we've been quite successful on podcasting. So what we're doing now is in the process of setting up a platform.
Yeah.
A new platform on social media. And so we're in the process of doing that. Our podcasting have been quite successful. I think we're over 600,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is quite a big number. But I believe there is potential for all the issues that you and me have talked about.
Yeah.
Including for the female side, actually, and some of the things that I did not realize until I saw your bio.
Yeah.
So I'll stay in touch with you on that area because there may interesting opportunities for becoming more public about.
Yeah, I would love to. I think that Scott and I had a conversation earlier, and we were talking about like why Rizzo Health and Fitness has grown so much.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is that I am open about all of these things. I'm open about PCOS. I'm open about my struggles with ADHD, and you're open about everything. And I think that's really the key.
Yeah, I'm open about it too. I'm open about it's a superpower.
Yeah.
So and that there is potential, and then but I believe there is room for a platform around the world, because this is not unique to our region area in North America. This is globally the case, and that really it has only started to open up, and I think there's room for a platform. So that's what I'm in the process of putting together. And,
that's exciting.
We'll
Yeah, no, of course.
So that being said, that we have to do another podcast here at some point.
Yes.
So the hour is nearly full. So anything else that comes to mind, before we...
Yeah, I think I actually did have a question for you. Obviously, in Prince George, as an entrepreneur, you are someone that a lot of us look up to. With the economy right now, with the forestry industry in northern BC and Prince George, it's really scary for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of families here right now. But what's your advice for people trying to succeed right now?
Prince George is a perfect place because we have all the things that people in the world would like to have that we have. That is in terms of natural resources. Yeah. Forest industry is going through a transition, but I'm very much an optimist. I think there's great potential here. Prince George will grow, it will attract more and more people, but the economy will change a bit, but it has super high potential in my mind. And then when I first came here in 1965, in this area here, George Street, the conversation would be, when did you get here and when are you leaving?
Really?
Yeah, because there was no infrastructure in terms of colleges then. We already had something, but not like what we have now. UNBC and on and on and on. This is a perfect family town in my mind, and the best location around the world that I can think of in terms of location next to the United States, Asia, Europe. We collectively, United States, I was not happy about some of the things that are happening there. Same here necessarily, but still we are, if we look around, we look at Europe, the Ukraine, look at the Middle East, look at South America, look at China, look at Russia. We are lucky that we are here in this region. And from an economic perspective, I think there could not be a better place than we are here in Canada, in particular, Northern British Columbia, in my mind.
I agree, yeah.
And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm even today investing, trying to buy 3 sawmills, 4 sawmills.
I saw, yeah.
And building a shopping center. And so we're doing a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And so because I'm a believer.
Yeah.
Now, with all those people watching us from around the world, is that, and we have people, tens of thousands of people watching us around the world, that if you like what we are doing as a podcast on the Brink, then subscribe to our podcast, like it, share it with others, in particular, a podcast that we had today with Taylor being so open and candid about challenges for herself and still being very, very successful and having gone through challenges, but still staying very optimistic, and then stay tuned to the podcasting, in particular on the Brink and others. It's only at the beginning now. It will grow very aggressively. We call it the new media. And again, thank you for watching us. And Taylor, thank you. I'm going to give you a big hug.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So thank you for being on my show.
Thanks for having me.